एहसास न्याय का सबके लिए, आकाश न्याय का सबके लिए.
Hello. At the outset, I would like to express my sense of gratitude to the Goa State Legal Services Authority for having given me this opportunity to present on a topic which is very, very relevant today. And I sincerely believe that legal awareness is the order of the day, and to a great extent, litigation will be curtailed if the common man is reached out to and we make them understand what are the basic laws for which we need not really go to courts when they are as simple as they are intended to be. So my endeavor in this talk today would be to simplify a legislation which, according to me, is of vital importance today. The topic for today's discussion is the Real Estate Regulation and Development Act 2016. Now this act came into force on the 1st of May 2016. When I say it came into force, there were certain provisions which were brought into force on the 1st of May 2016, and certain other provisions were brought into force on the 1st of May 2017. With regard to the details and the provisions as and how they have been brought into force, I'll deal with it a little later. But before we get into the nitty-gritties of this entire act, we need to understand the background circumstances under which this act came into force. And one of the first things we need to keep in mind is what are the existing acts which were there in force at the relevant point in time, which were meant to cater to various issues pertaining to real estate, and what were the deficiencies in those acts. Now, to understand that and give it a perspective, I would just like to quote an example which, according to me and to a great extent, would help us understand what is the importance of this act, in what way it has addressed the concerns of various people, and how it has to a great extent taken into consideration the various problems which were there in the real estate sector and has attempted to address the problems. So now, considering this act which was passed, there is one example which I would like to quote, and that is of the Amrapali group. Now this is a group based in New Delhi, and there were about 42,000 buyers. Yes, I will just reiterate the figure: 42,000 buyers who were not given their flats, despite the fact that entire payment, which came to about 3,700 crores, was paid. Now this entire payment was made, the flats were left incomplete, and this 3,700 crores which were paid by the buyers, which were towards the entire consideration of the flats, were transferred or siphoned off to another account by the concerned developer. So the consequence was that the building was left incomplete, the monies were exhausted, the developer was bankrupt, the allottees had effected payment of the entire consideration, they had availed of loan facilities, they had dug into their savings accounts, and we had a situation of complete deadlock. Now in this context, let us see the reliefs which one could claim at that point of time before the Real Estate Act 2016 came into force. Now the various legislations would be, one is the Specific Relief Act. So you could go for a civil court and file a suit maybe for specific performance and tell the civil court, kindly enforce the agreement, call upon this particular builder to hand over my premises because I paid the entire consideration. To which the builder says, well, I have absolutely no money. As much as I know there is a contract, but I am not in a position to anyway comply with these orders. So after going through the entire process, through the rigors of a civil suit, ultimately the decree would just be a paper decree. Then the other option was to go to a consumer court. Now consumer court, as much as it is friendly, it is consumer friendly, and the procedure is quite summary, even then it would have limitations as to the kind of order that could be passed in a very complex situation like this. And these situations were quite rampant, where the buildings were left incomplete and the payments were siphoned off. Now the third angle would be an inter se arbitration dispute, which again, apart from the time that it would take for an award to be passed and then the challenges that would follow, it would just be relegated to a paper award. Fourth option, to go to a criminal court and file a criminal complaint. Now in this criminal complaint, you make various allegations. It's a clear case of cheating, it's a clear case of fraud, but the concerned developers whoever have indulged in such malpractices, the experience is that they're quite thick-skinned. So they have absolutely no difficulty in just sitting in jails for as much time as the court wants it to sit in jails. But they make it very clear and throw their hands up and say, we cannot comply with this order, do what you can. Now, all the 4 remedies, even if one avails of, ultimately justice is not delivered. And I say that because you have a situation where the money that is paid by an allottee cannot be recovered. He does not even get his premises. No doubt the concerned action is taken against the errant developer, but that does not serve the purpose of an allottee. The allottee has invested his entire life savings in the project, and he's bound to be distraught about the situation, and basically if you look at it, there is no remedy which is effective. Now, although I have given you this one example, there are numerous such examples. One was another case of Golden Forest, where you have almost about 1 lakh investors who were stuck because the monies were siphoned off. So I can go on about various examples and the rampant fraud that was being played in the real estate sector. It was in these circumstances that it was felt necessary that we need to have a regulation. So I've given you this background to understand what is the purpose sought to be achieved by this Real Estate Act, and let us just understand whether this purpose has actually been served in the limited time that it has been in force. Now, even if one goes by the Real Estate Regulation and Development Act 2016, there are various parameters that are laid down as to how the real estate industry should function. See, the real estate industry to a great extent propels the economy of the country. The real estate industry in 2028 is expected to assist the GDP to the tune of 13%. It is the second largest industry when it comes to employment in India. So it was too big an industry for it to be left unattended, for it to be left unregulated, and apart from the concerns from the standpoint of a consumer, it was also the economy which was being affected by the fraud or the land frauds which were being played by the developers. So it is in this context that we need to understand what are these provisions, what was the effect of these provisions, what is it that it intends to safeguard for the consumers or for the developer, or for as far as the authority is concerned, what is it that it can really address in terms of concerns. And if you ask me, to a great extent, it has attempted to address various concerns of the consumer and also taking care of the developer to the extent that it could take care of the developer. Now, coming to the specific provisions of this Act, as I said, it was 1st May 2016 that some of the sections were brought into force, but the main sections which required registration, which requires that the specific developer should give all the details of the project, register it, follow the registration process, which created rights in favor of the allottee, were brought into force on the 1st of May 2017. So as any allottee, without getting into technicalities, you need to understand that yes, this Act has come into force for all practical purposes on the 1st of May 2017. We need to understand that the rules in Goa were notified on the 24th of November 2017. So keep these 2 dates in mind when we are going through the provisions, so that anybody who is listening to this interaction today can assess his position vis-a-vis the time frame when he has invested in the project. So we have 1st of May 2017 when the Act came into force, and then we have 24th of November 2017 when the rules or Goa rules were notified. Now the way it's understood is, in the event on 24th of November 2017, there is no completion certificate for the project in any part of Goa, then RERA applies. So for the understanding of an allottee, or for anybody's understanding without really getting into the nitty-gritties or exhaustively getting into interpretation, we just need to keep in mind that as on 24th of November 2017, if the project does not have a completion certificate from the DCP or the PD authorities, the RERA Act is applicable to that particular project in Goa. And this is one fundamental aspect. Now, as far as the Act is concerned, even if one goes through the definition clauses, I don't want to delve very deep into the definitions and get to legalities, but suffice it to say that there are about 2 or 3 definitions which are of importance and which to a great extent help us understand to the contours of the act. Now first is as the apartment. In the definition of apartment, they made it very clear it is a residential apartment, as also it includes shops, godowns. So this definition makes it clear that this act applies for residential as also for commercial projects. So that is one concern which was addressed, whereby it is not just residential projects which were covered, but also commercial projects which were covered. So anybody even commercially investing in a project is sought to be secured by this legislation. The other aspect is, other definition is the real estate project definition. Now the real estate project definition covers not just the apartments, but it also covers plots. So in a way, it is unique because it not just catered to the specific flat owners, but it also caters to all those plot owners who have invested in plots on the basis of subdivision approvals. So these 2 definitions make us understand that this act applies to commercial premises and residential premises, and it applies to apartments as also it applies to the plots and subdivision regulations. So that's the reason why the act in that sense is all pervasive. I think it covers every investor, every bona fide investor in the real estate sector. Now if you have to go to the specific provisions without going into each of those sections, the very first provision is section 3, which mere reading is very clear on what it means. It just says that every real estate project has to be registered, and no project and no developer can market the project in any form unless and until it is registered under RERA. So this is a specific prohibition. So today if you get any kind of an advertisement, you can be rest assured that this project has to be registered. In fact, you should look for that registration number. If that is not there, that by itself is a violation of RERA. So that is the first aspect, that even before there is any kind of marketing, you need to register. Now second aspect is to what projects RERA applies. Now if there is a project of 8 units or 8 apartments and below, then RERA has no application. And if it is a land development up to 500 or 500 or below, RERA does not apply. So you need to keep these exceptions in mind before you go before an authority, raise your grievances or file any kind of complaints. So if it is below 500 and if it is below 8 or below, then RERA does not apply. Now one interesting aspect which has a Goan perspective also is that under RERA, what was sought to be covered was only the planning area projects, and planning area, the way it is defined, would include any area so designated by the government. Now in the Goan context, planning area is also defined under the Town and Country Planning Act. So there could be an interpretation, or there could have been an interpretation, that under the Town and Country Planning Act there is a planning area definition, and therefore the planning area as notified in the Town and Country Planning Act should be the planning area for the purpose of RERA. And this was for some length of time, an issue which required consideration till such time that Goa government by notification has specifically clarified that for the purpose of RERA, the entire state of Goa is a planning area. So for all you Goans, you need to keep in mind that entire Goa is part of the planning area only for the purpose of this act. So any project, in any part of Goa, in a rural area in Goa or an urban area in Goa, if it is above 8 apartments and if it has development above 500 square meters, it will be a RERA project. It has to be registered as a RERA project. Then once you register the project, the second aspect is what is it that the builder was required to disclose in the registration. And this is where the consumer has to go through the concerned papers before he even evinces interest to purchase the premises. Because section 4 says there are various requirements which the developer has to comply with, various disclosures, and these disclosures are very fundamental to your decision making process. And these disclosures are specifically incorporated keeping in mind the various frauds that have taken place. Now just to briefly go through the disclosures, one of the disclosures that is required is the background of the company, the status of the company who wants to do the project. It also has to disclose its status in the last 5 years as to number of projects that it has undertaken, the number of completions that it has undertaken in the last 5 years, and what is the status of those projects. This will help an allottee understand what is the background of this developer, whether he has a good history or not. Now this is a factor in the decision making of the allottee, whether he has to go in for this particular project or not. The third aspect is there needs to be a specific disclosure with regard to the title. There has to be a title certificate which has to be attached to when you disclose or register the project, and all this has to be on the website. So even the concerned allottee can examine the title of this particular developer with reference to this project, get it examined, and only upon that satisfaction one can proceed with the purchase or the transaction, because it needs to be borne in mind in a place like Goa, since the records from the Portuguese times are existing but they are not streamlined. There's a lot of litigation which invariably ensues in view of this uncertainty, and from that standpoint it is important that this title certificate is there on record and is examined by the concerned allottee. So now there is a declaration he needs to make that the entire land is also free of encumbrance. So these are the requirements with regard to disclosure. These disclosures have to be made on an affidavit by the responsible person of the promoter. So again, the responsibility is cast on the developer, and to ensure that in every statement that he makes in the affidavit he is made accountable for, and these disclosures are very fundamental to the entire transaction. The further undertaking that a developer has to give pertains to the time that he will take to complete the project. This disclosure has to be there at the inception, at the time when you are seeking registration. So he needs to put it down on paper in how much time he is going to complete the project. Another disclosure that is also of importance, and in fact it's more in the nature of an undertaking, because that's a provision of the Act, that he will keep aside 70% of the amount that he will collect from the allottees towards something called a project account, which project account will be regulated under the Act. Now under the Act, there is a specific stipulation as to the manner in which the concerned developer can withdraw amounts from this project account, and this is directly relevant to the stage of construction. So just for example, if 20% of the construction is completed, to the extent of 20% one can withdraw from that account. So this was meant to give accountability, which was also one of the main problems that was faced in this industry. You would have situations, and as I referred to the earlier example of Amrapali, I am referring to that as a set example to understand the effect of each of these provisions and how they have benefited the consumer. Because that is a stark example of absolute fraud. The fraud can't get as worse than that. So even if you consider from that standpoint, if at all the RERA was in place at that point of time, the concerned developer would not be permitted to withdraw beyond what is the stage of construction. And therefore question of any direct siphoning of the amounts which are deposited by the allottees does not arise. So this is also specifically addressed. Now this account, project account, has to be also certified by the concerned architect, by the engineer, and by the chartered accountant. So even when the withdrawal is effected by the developer, it has to be backed by a proper certification from these three professionals. So under this Act, accountability is fastened on the engineer, the architect, and the chartered accountant. So at every step there is some kind of measure which is taken to ensure that there is compliance and there is accountability and liability fastened on the concerned persons who are making these representations or filing compliances. And that is, according to me, one of the great achievements under the Act. Now, what happens to this entire period? This period that is specified by the developer as the time taken for completion of the project will be the period for validity of registration. So till such time that this particular project is in process of being completed, during this period the registration will be valid. In the event you do not comply with the requirements under this particular time stipulation, then there are consequences which follow under the Act, and which would entail something as serious as even revocation of your registration after giving you opportunity. So therefore, one of the main problems with the real estate sector was with regard to the timelines. Invariably, projects were delayed time and again, and there was no accountability which was fastened on that particular developer. Although there are various provisions under various acts whereby legal proceedings can be initiated, but because of the backlog, because of the delays in the decision making process involved in judicial proceedings, so the entire process was further being delayed and was not being effective for the concerned consumer. So therefore, if you see at every step, at every stage, caution has been exercised by the legislature to ensure that there is compliance, and the compliance is at the instance of responsible persons who are working for the developer or the developer himself, who ultimately is the promoter under the project. Now, another important aspect of this act is, and which according to me is quite revolutionary and it sets this act apart from all the other legislations, is that it addresses one important concern of a consumer as to what happens if the money is paid, just as I narrated in the example of Amrapali. If the money is paid, the project is left incomplete, and the developer says, I have exhausted all my funds, and he is not in a position to complete it. So this is where section 8 of this act comes into play, and it actually gives power to the authority, to the RERA authority, in consultation with the government, to ensure that the project is taken over by either a competent authority or by a third developer, but with the consultation of the allottees. And this option is also given at the option of the allottees, so that their rights are protected and all their investments are taken care of. They also understand in whose hands this project has to be handed over, wherein they can be secured at least the second time round. So therefore, this section 8 according to me is revolutionary, and this is one of the main facets of this particular act. Thereafter, as far as the entire process of resolution is concerned, the act contemplates various authorities. You have the authority that is the RERA authority, which has various powers to investigate any complaint. It has powers to impose penalties in case of violations, and anything which requires judicial application of mind, there is something called an adjudicating officer. So the complaints could be manifold. It could be as simple as saying that no, I haven't got my premises although I paid for it. But if it's something more to say, I haven't got my premises and there is some compensation which is due and payable under the act, then the issue has to go before the adjudicating officer, who is a judicial officer in terms of the appointment requirements. Then if the event this order goes against any of the concerned persons, there is a mechanism whereby you have to go before the appellate authority, and even appellate authority is required to dispose of the appeal expeditiously. So another concern which is addressed is with regard to delays in courts. So here there is a specific mandate given to the appellate authority and RERA authority to dispose of the proceedings within a time frame, and time frame given is as less as 60 days. Even if there is some kind of delay on that part, the concerned authority has to give reasons as to why there is a delay beyond 60 days. So that is one of another important factor which the Act seeks to address. Now, considering all these aspects, another issue is, yes, we have systems in court, we have proceedings before the arbitrator, we can have proceedings before civil court, but the issue has always been with regard to execution. Now, as far as execution is concerned, there are some stringent powers which are given to the authority, with stringent powers which are given to the appellate authority. There is also the fact that the non-compliance of this particular orders is made a criminal offence. So therefore, to the extent that the legislature could have secured the performance of these orders or execution of these orders, the legislature has given necessary safeguards. Now, there are two other important aspects in this act which require mention. One other aspect is, and that has been a problem many a times, that the developers used to represent that a particular project, represent the common areas in a particular way, and then there was deviation subsequently made without the consent of the consumer. Now, this also is specifically adverted to in the provisions, whereby the Act makes it very clear that unless and until 2/3 majority of the allottees sanctify this or consent to any kind of a variation in the outline plan or in the layout plan of the development, there cannot be any change which can be effected. So this is a specific embargo which is placed vis-a-vis the developer. The secondly aspect is, even with regard to the individual apartments, unless and until there is a specific consent by that individual apartment holder, then you cannot do any changes to this to the apartment. The other aspect also which is considered in this act is with regard to the delay in constitution of the societies and the delay in the conveyance in favor of the allottee and the society. In this aspect, specifically it is mentioned that moment you have a majority of the allottees, that is 50% and above allottees, have already executed an agreement to sell, it is duty bound, or the developer is duty bound to constitute a society and of all the allottees and thereafter proceed under the act. Now, as far as the conveyance time is concerned, it is also specifically mentioned that immediately within the period of 3 months from the occupancy being granted, the common areas have to be conveyed to the society and the individual apartments have to be conveyed to the concerned allottees. So if you try to see from start to the finish, that is the handing over of this particular the concerned apartment or the concerned plot, the entire process is regulated. There are checks and balances, and in fact tells the developer that you have to do business only in this way and no other way, which could be termed as an impediment, but this is how the act has been designed. It is very, very consumer centric. The other, amongst the various other aspects which one deals with, I have also referred to the aspect of maintenance during the time when the project is being executed. Even during this time, it's a responsibility which is cast specifically on the developer, that till such time that you hand over the particular premises, you hand over the entire society premises, you have to continue to maintain the concerned project. So, if I look at it from any standpoint, I think this act covers various aspects. It addresses various grievances of all the allottees. It provides for a legal mechanism whereby the redressal can be, there is a redressal system to grievances, and more importantly, there is a particular time frame within which the grievances need to be addressed, which has been taken as one of the important factors in this act. So, according to me, if I have to put down this act and list down the various features, I would say this act actually instills financial discipline. It lays down accountability. There is transparency. It is very consumer centric, and more importantly, there is a lot of emphasis on compliance. So, in a way, this act it tends to over-regulate. But having said that, considering the exigency of the situation and the rampant fraud that was existing at the time when this act came into force, and the situation that this act sought to address, according to me, this was required, some kind of over-regulation was required, and it really is beneficial to the entire real estate industry that the functioning is streamlined and is made transparent. Thank you.
राष्ट्रीय न्यायिक सेवा प्राधिकरण
न्यायालयातल्या कारवाई खातीर बरो वकील मेळोवन दिता.
वेळार योग्य कायद्या खालची मदत आणि सल्लो दिता
लोक अदालत द्वारा चड काळच्या केसीक बेगीन सोपयता.
आणि ते बी सामके मोफत.
राष्ट्रीय न्यायिक सेवा प्राधिकरण बेस बरो न्याय बेस बरो समाज.
अधिक माहिती खातीर लागच्या न्यायालयातल्या न्यायिक सेवा प्राधिकरण कार्यालया लागीं संपर्क करा
वा टोल फ्री नंबर 1510 चेर फोन करा.